James Palmer, Courtney Fallon there near City Hall. Guys, we had a chant from Bill Belichick, a chant he was trying to get going. No days off. How did the crowd react to that, as a lot of them taking the day off to watch the Patriots celebrate a Super Bowl championship?
Well, it was interesting, Patrick. Fans were kind of scrambling because they didn't know this was actually going to take place. So fans started dispersing and really heading in their directions towards home, or I'm going to say back to work, but probably not back to work, and really didn't know that this impromptu kind of, speaking session was going to take place, to where you're going to hear from Robert Kraft, you're going to hear from Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. I don't know what the over-under was for no days off, Patrick, on how many times Bill Belichick was going to say no days off, but we heard from Tom Brady about how difficult this game was and how hard it was to win this one, and that it was for the city and that it was for this team. And I think Robert Kraft probably put it best when he said, we have the GOAT in Tom Brady, we have the GOAT in Bill Belichick, and we have the GOAT in you, the fans. Because I will say, as long as they stood out here and as long as they stood in weather that was obviously something that nobody really would like to just hang out on a sidewalk for hours on end in the snow, in the sleet, and the rain when it's about 35 degrees, feels like it's in the 20s, for a chance just to see Tom Brady and company drive by on these duck boats and these flatbed trucks for just a couple of seconds. I mean, you see Tom Brady come across you in this parade if you're just a patron right out here, and Tom Brady's going to go by for about 15 to 30 seconds, and you stood out here for hours for those 30 seconds. But that shows what kind of fan base they have here in Boston, and maybe Robert Kraft is right by saying they have the GOAT in the fans, because I was extremely impressed by the turnout and really what they stood and waited in for the short time they get to see these fans.
Especially given the weather situation, you didn't really know how many fans were going to show up, but tens of thousands. I mean, we'll eventually get I
think it might be in the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands. We'll get the official count later on. What I was most impressed about with that rally was how animated Bill Belichick was. I know you said, over under maybe 5, one more time. I've never seen him so excited, so animated. As they said, listen, this guy works 365 days, 7 days a week. He never takes a day off. We talked about that earlier in the broadcast. And in his final press conference in Houston, he said, listen, let's be honest, we're going to be enjoying this parade and this championship. We're 5 weeks behind in our preparation for 2017, and he's not kidding. He works so hard, so it's nice to see the coach curmudgeon face all the time, motionless, emotionless, finally, enjoy himself and crack a smile and have a moment with the fan base that has been so loyal to him and this Patriots team for years.
Well, Courtney, we're hearing from fans saying, let's go. That was Tom Brady saying that just a little while ago on the riser. Really, that patented phrase that goes around the locker room that all those guys really say has a different couple of meanings. If Julian Edelman talked about it this week leading into the Super Bowl, the meanings of let's go that comes from Tom Brady, and that's kind of been his calling card, as everyone going up and down the streets was saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, counting up to 5 of those 5 Super Bowl championships. But they also are talking a lot about bringing one more and bringing number 6. But why stop at 6? Who knows how many more they can get while Tom Brady and Bill Belichick are still here together, Patrick, in New England.
Yeah, it's funny to look at if you consider where they've come from in the past, taking that break, and now winning a couple of more Super Bowls in the past few years. James, Courtney, want to kind of talk about Devin McCourty almost taking over this impromptu celebration as a master of ceremonies, reminding the fans after James White speaks, the guy who scored 3 touchdowns in the Super Bowl, oh, by the way, we've got this coach and this quarterback, but here's James White. Here's the guy that you guys are so happy about. That was actually him that just spoke. He got a big reaction out of that.
James White goes and breaks out all these Super Bowl records, 14 catches in this game. First player to ever have over 100 yards receiving, and then he has 2 rushing touchdowns as well. He goes to Disneyland, comes back here, kind of overlooked in all of this, obviously, because of Tom Brady's attention, because of the attention to Robert Kraft, the owner, and to Bill Belichick, who many consider the best coach in NFL history. You forget about the player James White with everything he did on the field. And I remember throughout that week in Houston, he spoke on a riser almost every single day, and there were times nobody was actually there talking to him, and I would go up and talk to James White and just kind of shoot the breeze with him, because who knew he was going to be this part of the game plan? Who knew he was going to be this player in this game? We didn't know that was going to happen, but a lot of times with Josh McDaniels, with Bill Belichick, we don't know who's going to break out and what's going to happen, and it was James White for Super Bowl 51.
Well, that's exactly what you were saying earlier, that, the snowflake game plan that the Patriots have. A few teams in the NFL have that. They cater to each and every game that they're playing, and every game plan is different, and any player can break out at any point in time, as evidenced from Chris Hogan having 180 yards, 9 catches through the first 2 games. Oh, it was just 1 game. In each game, James White only had 17 snaps, took 17 snaps in the divisional game against the Houston Texans. And they found that was working at that point in time, and in that point in time in the Super Bowl, nothing was going offensively. And once James White got the football, things just took off. And he took 70 snaps, scored 20 points himself, as you said. And arguably, a lot of people are saying why he wasn't the Super Bowl MVP. But of course, in all honesty, James, as much as many people might want James White to be Super Bowl MVP, you don't get there without Tom Brady orchestrating the comeback that he did. The offense goes through Tom Brady. And, obviously, TB12, he's giving his props to James White, saying this doesn't belong to me, this belongs to James White. But, it's a team effort, and they rely on each other. And that's what makes this offense so special year after year. Because you have those individuals that aren't necessarily superstars that will come in and will fit into a scheme, into an offense. And they can win games by all means, all 3 phases.
I'd like to take us back, Patrick, to really how organic this really was at this impromptu speaking session that we were talking about. Obviously, Robert Kraft gets up there, and you see Bill Belichick as well and Tom Brady. But in between, you got to kind of see and get a chance to see what these players are like personally, just kind of passing the microphone around and really just each of them taking a chance to kind of soak it in, speak to the crowd, even if they just yell into the microphone like an absolute lunatic for a couple of minutes. It was a chance for them to kind of get something out and show their excitement about really this entire moment, to grab that microphone, really just yell to the crowd here in Boston, show their appreciation as players for this city, Patrick.